versus Wolfe.
Welcome back, Koenig and Wolfe, another week of it. I'm Doug Wolfe, Clay Koenig, and your editorial this week is?
No cash bail.
Tell me about it. It's real controversial.
Yeah, implemented September 18th. Basically, if it's a nonviolent crime, you're going home without posting any type of bail. So this is what they're doing to relieve the clogging of the court systems, the disadvantaged, whether it be black or Latino versus the white, being arrested. There's data showing that when blacks are arrested, they're paying a 35% higher bail than a white defendant. Latinos are 19% higher. So they're trying to make it fair across the board. My opinion is I'm okay with this as long as there's non-violence attached to it. Anything that's violent whatsoever, that person does not belong on the street.
The problem with this law is it's confusing. Going into this law, which just took effect like September the 18th or somewhere
Correct.
around
Yeah.
that date, I knew police officers, totally unsure of what the provisions were. State's attorneys around the state, the prosecutors, no idea in most cases exactly what it meant.
Well, they've been arguing about this for 2 years.
And judges, yeah. And that's the thing. Nobody knows exactly which cases apply to and which don't. Some are pretty clear cut.
Right. So
if you're arrested for murder, you're going to have to post bond.
Right. Well, you're not going to even be available to post bond. You're just going to sit. There's just no chance.
You're not going anywhere.
All right. So you said an interesting story that, when they first talked about this coming out a couple of years ago, everybody was talking about it. And they were talking about interpretations, just like you said. A lot of people don't understand things. But then they start passing things in the cover of darkness, in the cover of night when people are sleeping.
This whole law was basically passed overnight, although it was daytime when it got around to it, because it was the actual end of a legislative session.
Okay.
It was passed literally in the final hours of a legislative session, where in the morning it was one legislature, at noon they swore in the next legislature. So it was the last thing they literally passed in January of 2021 of the previous legislature. And it passed by the vote they needed. I think they needed 60, and they got 60. They may have got 61. The bottom line was it barely passed. It was not clear exactly what it was. They've come back and amended it a couple of times because they keep finding cases where, well, that guy, does he actually get out on bond or not? And they'd have to go back and adjust it so they could tell you whether or not they could get out or not. Now, we have to take a quick break. Let's do that. When you come back, I'm going to give you the most egregious case I found in the first week or two of this bill.
I've got a story as well, Doug.
Okay.
You're back with Koenig versus Wolfe, and this week we're talking about no cash bail. Doug, you said you had a story.
Listen to this story. This is the most egregious one I found in the first week or two of this. A gentleman, and I'm being loose with that, is out on parole for armed robbery and aggravated battery.
Okay.
2 violent crimes.
Yes, very violent.
He is arrested in DuPage County for a smash and grab with a few of his buddies at a high-end boutique. They steal $68,000 worth of merchandise, and the judge looks at it and goes, I have to let him go until trial. Now, they put a GPS tracking monitor on his ankle and told him don't go back to the boutique that he robbed. Great. But the bottom line was the judge wasn't sure he could hold him, even though he was out on parole for 2 violent crimes or 2 violent charges.
See, I have a problem with that because anybody who's on parole, and if they get caught doing a crime, their parole is revoked and they automatically go to jail. There's no do not pass go, collect your $200. He shouldn't even have a monitoring system on him.
I suspect that they probably have to do a court hearing for that. I would think. I don't know. What are you hearing from the cops?
Well, I talked to some patrol officers. I've talked to some higher ups. I'm not going to mention any names. Look, how would you like to be a cop right now? You got people targeting your back, and then you have to go through this interpretation, this garbage. You're finally getting the people off the street that you've been hired to do, and that is your passion. And then some judge says, go home. Yeah. I don't understand. Here's a story. I was reading about this. There were 2 sisters up in the New York area, and they were at a family picnic, and they got into an argument. They took the one away who had the professional job, the 2 kids, and they took her to Rikers Island. They gave her a bond of $250,000, but she needed $25,000 to post to get out.
10%.
She didn't have the money. She sat in Rikers for over a year and a half.
This is in New York.
This is in New York. Over a year and a half because she couldn't afford the bail. She lost her children, she lost her job, she lost her house, and now she's out and she's trying to rebuild her life. That is what no cash bail should be used for. Something like that.
Sure. And I think I heard the horror story about a guy like in Chicago. His bond was $500 cash. He had to post $500. He couldn't come up with $500.
Right.
Sat there a few months before he went on trial. In your editorial, you mentioned about judges setting bond higher for minorities, let's say.
Right.
Okay? I think there's a way around that.
Okay.
Don't give the judges discretion. In other words, put it in statute so all they have to do is look at a card. If you're charged with this boutique robbery, maybe the card says you get an automatic $50,000 bond, let's say. You can look at the card for another charge. You're charged with, running a guy over and leaving the scene. Maybe that card says everybody gets this amount of bond. Instead of having it be an arbitrary and putting the judge in a situation where he has a higher bond for minorities versus a white person, everybody has the same, the same bond based on the various criminal charges. I think that'd be the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, but isn't that what happened before the no cash bail? Because it's an interpretation from the judge on what, 1 to 3 years, what should I give this guy, looking at his history and
You're
so forth.
talking sentencing. I'm talking about bond.
Okay, about bond itself. So what happens to bail bondsmen? We have one or a couple in the Springfield area. Are those people, those jobs are eliminated now because there's
no? Then they can. Are they eliminated now?
Yes, are they eliminated
I
now
don't
because
know.
of no cash bail? I tried to call one this morning. Nobody answered the phone. So I was
They're
trying
out of business.
So I'm trying to get the information here.
I have no
I've got
idea.
questions.
Chico's bail bonds?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't Chico. Well, I don't know. Was it Chico's? No, I'm not going to get into that.
That's a movie.
I understand. So where do we leave this with? I mean, what happens now?
I don't know.
You're going to have stories all over the place. You're going to have
This will
people
go on for
slipping
years.
through the crack. Yeah, it will. And you know what? You're going to have people saying, "I told you so."
Right.
I
gave you one example from
Right.
one case
Yeah.
in one county in 102 counties.
Yeah.
Going to see this stuff all the time.
Right.
And my son's a police officer, and he told me, going into this, he goes, it's kind of confusing.
Right.
You know?
And then I also heard that when they passed everything, it wasn't nearly what the introduction of the bill was. Everything's been changed so much for this 2 years,
sure.
everybody going through the deal.
Sure, and that's why it's coming into this, I said earlier, cops, prosecutors, judges, they were all still confused about exactly what this law meant. And I still think they're confused. I think if they were honest, they'd be like, we don't know.
Hey, it's Illinois. We're confused. When you boil down to it, that's what it boils down to.
That's it.
Well, Doug, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good
All right.
information. I mean, we're going to be talking with these editorials every week, but I mean, these are some of the things that they need to be
Sure.
discussed.
And I guarantee you we're going to have more stories like this. We may have to come back to it in a few months.
Absolutely.
Take a look at it 6 months from now and saying, how messed up is it or how good is it? Maybe it turns out to be good. I doubt it.
Good job this week.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Doug. Thank
We'll
you.
be back next week.
All right. Sounds good.